The Hughes Kettner Redbox is one of the most popular speaker simulations of all time, but why would you want one? The expectations of what an electric guitar sounds like are shaped by both the instrument and the amplifier. A guitar amp's output is much more than just input signal but louder. The following is a guitar track that goes straight into the PC versus the same signal through an amplifier. The story goes further still. Blues, rock, and heavy metal music are often very much dependent on distorted guitar sounds, which are most often facilitated through driving the valves in amplifiers into clipping. Okay, but why won't you just plug a tube overdrive pedal into the PC? Because it will sound like this. Alongside the tonal qualities of electric guitars and their amplifiers, speakers used for guitar amplification have an equally strong impact on the final result. Due to their large diameter, typically 12 inches, they are very much incapable of producing high frequencies. This here shows the frequency response of a Celestion Vintage 30, one of the most popular guitar speakers. So it has become standard practice to mic up the speaker of an amplifier for most guitar recording applications, and even on live shows. And this is where the Redbox comes in. It's designed to imitate the effect of a mic'd up guitar speaker while being much, much easier to use. Miking up an amplifier is a skill that takes a very long time to develop because moving the microphone by millimeters has a pretty strong effect on the tone. This is fine in a studio situation, but live, the lack of time to figure out the ideal mic position and the possibility of someone bumping into something and ruin your tone is a pretty strong deterring factor. The Redbox just sits between your amp and the speaker cabinet, which is still required for valve amps by the way. The Redbox is not a substitute for a speaker load. This means that you can just plug it in and always get a usable tone out of it. But how does it sound? Here's the comparison between the Redbox, the recording outputs of the Engel Ironball and PV6505MH, and an actual mic'd up speaker. Well, as it turns out, the Redbox doesn't sound as good as a real speaker. And on top of that, there's a very modern competitor to analog speaker simulations such as the Redbox. It's called convolution. Convolution, at least in the audio world, has originally been implemented as reverb effects. It allows to take a snapshot of any room and then make anything sound like it was recorded in said room. Previous reverb effects are all just an approximation. Convolution is a carbon copy. The same applies to speaker simulations. You can run a test signal through a cabinet and mic combination and record the result, then apply this impulse response through a convolution reverb plugin, and there you have your free, true-to-life speaker simulation. There are a number of free impulse responses as well as convolution reverb plugins available for download. Two Note has developed their Wall of Sound plugin, which uses impulse responses of all kinds of cabinets and is available rather cheaply. Cabinets usually cost below €10, and a single one gives you full access to the plugin with all its features, apart from all the other cabinets, of course. To keep it rather fair, I'll run a plug and play comparison between Wall of Sound and the Redbox, keeping as many settings to standard as possible. In terms of sound quality, the Redbox seems to lose clearly. There's also an impulse response based pedal called the Moore Radar, which also potentially sounds much better than the Redbox. As a final nitpick as well, the Redbox doesn't allow for silent recording because it still requires you to use a speaker cab. Now, why would you use the Redbox then? First, it sits in between the amp and the speaker, while most other solutions require a line out, which many amplifiers simply do not provide. An effects send would work, however, the power amp does have an effect on the tone and the amount of distortion on your signal. Next, it's super easy to use. Utilizing a computer in a live situation is often out of the question. Also, it's much harder to accidentally mess with your signal if you use the Redbox rather than a mic. You don't need to learn how to mic up a cab, and you don't need to sift through a growing number of available impulse responses in order to find your desired tone. And finally, it's often just good enough. You do get a usable sound out of it. In conclusion, make no mistake, this is a niche product. For home recording, you can get better tones for cheaper. If you already have an amp, which is the requirement for the Redbox, you could go with a DI box plus wall of sound, or a mic such as a Shure SM57 or an AKG-D40. This is a live tool for when you want a quick, easy, sturdy solution that is almost idiot-proof. It still needs phantom power, but it won't get much easier than this. First,